When I turned 60, something shifted inside me. Life no longer felt like a race to accomplish, to prove or to achieve anything. Instead, it became a quiet invitation to look within, deeper, slower, and more honestly than ever before. At this age, the world doesn't pull you with the same intensity it once did. The noise softens, the expectations loosen, and in that space, something profound appears. The truth of who you really are beneath all the roles you've carried. People often think 60 marks the beginning of decline, but to me, it feels like dawn. Not the kind of dawn filled with excitement and ambition like in our 20s, but a softer, wiser dawn, a dawning of clarity. You begin to see your life not as a series of accomplishments, but as a rich landscape of experiences, lessons, losses, joys, and transformations that have shaped you in ways you never truly understood until now. As the body slows down and the heart settles, you realize that much of your suffering never came from the events themselves, but from the self, the identity you attach to those events. We spend decades trying to build and protect this identity, our achievements, our failures, our image, or what others think of us, the roles we have to play. And then one day, somewhere around 60, you finally have the insight to ask, who am I beneath all of that? This is where Vipassana becomes a doorway. I've always believed that meditation isn't only for the young or the highly disciplined. In fact, it often works best for those who have lived enough to understand what truly matters. When you're young, the mind is pulled in too many directions. When you're in your middle years, you're carried by responsibilities, family, career, and survival. But at 60, something precious happens. There's space. Space to breathe, space to reflect, space to heal, and space to awaken. And that is exactly why Breath Journey was created. A gentle sanctuary where you can return to your breath and through your breath, return to yourself. I like to say that the breath is our oldest companion. It's been with us from our first moment and will stay with us until our very last. Yet most of us forget it completely. Breath Journey is a reminder, a quiet invitation to reconnect with the wisdom that has always been inside you, waiting patiently beneath the surface of daily life. On this channel, I share the teachings and insights that transformed my own life. Lessons from decades of Vipassana practice, stories from the inner path, and reflections born from guiding many students over 50 and 60 years old. My intention is simple, to help you discover peace not as an idea, but as an experience you can feel in your breath, in your body, and in your everyday life. I know that many people in their 60s feel hesitant to try meditation. They worry their mind is too noisy, too restless, too burdened by years of stress or pain. But meditation doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. If you can breathe, you can begin. If you can sit for a few moments in honesty with yourself, you are already on the path. Breath Journey is here to walk with you, slowly, gently, compassionately. Like an old friend sitting beside you, sharing stories that help the heart soften and the mind open. And if this is your first time here, I'm truly glad you've found your way. My hope is that something you hear today, a word, a sentence, a moment of silence, will offer you comfort or clarity. If what I share resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Not as a favor to me, but as a gift to yourself. Subscribing is simply a way of saying, yes, I want more moments like this, more calm, more presence, more truth. When you subscribe, you plant a small seed in your own heart, a reminder that you deserve space to breathe, space to return home to yourself, space to live these years with grace. The journey inward doesn't begin with a dramatic step. It begins with a quiet choice. And if you're here watching this, perhaps that choice is already being made. I'm honored to be part of your breath journey, and I look forward to walking with you, one breath at a time. When people hear the word Vipassana, they often imagine something advanced, mysterious, or spiritually complicated. But the truth is almost the opposite. Vipassana is simple, beautifully simple, and deeply human. It doesn't ask you to believe in anything. It doesn't require rituals, philosophies, or adopting a new identity. What it asks is far more honest, to see reality as it truly is. That's all Vipassana means, to see clearly, to see without the filters of fear, to see without the coloring of desire, to see without the labels your mind has learned to attach to everything. This seeing isn't done with the eyes. It is the silent awareness within you, the part of you that notices thoughts, sensations, and emotions without getting lost in them. In Vipassana, every breath, every heartbeat, every shift in the body becomes a teacher. Each moment is an invitation to notice the truth that's been there all along. Everything is constantly changing, and nothing belongs to you. The mind, however, has a different habit. It loves to create stories. When your knee aches, the mind tells a story about aging, decline, and fear. When loneliness arises, the mind spins stories about not being loved or not being enough. When someone speaks sharply to you, the mind instantly interprets it as an insult. And without noticing it, you start reacting not to life itself, but to the stories your mind creates. Vipassana teaches you to step out of the story and see what is actually happening. A sensation is just a sensation. A thought is just a thought. An emotion is just an emotion. Each has a beginning and an end. When you observe closely, you realize that the story has always been optional. Imagine looking at a flower. The mind instantly says a rose, beautiful, red, fragrant. But those words aren't the flower. They are memories, concepts, interpretations. The flower exists long before the mind labels it. Vipassana invites you to look at experience the same way, without naming, without judging, without adding extra meaning. Just seeing. When you observe the body in stillness, you begin to notice how alive it is. A point of warmth here, a vibration there, a brief pulsing, a subtle tightness. You notice that none of these sensations stay the same. They move, shift, rise, fade. This is the nature of the body, and when you look closely, you begin to see that there is no self inside those sensations, just a stream of moment-to-moment changes. The same is true for thoughts. If you sit quietly long enough, you'll see thoughts appearing on their own. You don't choose them. You don't summon them. They simply arise, stay for a moment, and dissolve. This alone shows that thoughts are not you. They are events happening in you. I often tell my students, you are not the river. You are the one who sits on the riverbank watching the water flow. And when you begin to watch instead of react, something gentle yet powerful happens. Suffering loses its grip. Not because life becomes easier, but because your relationship with life changes. The foundation of Vipassana is the realization of impermanence, the truth that everything changes. The Buddha said, when you see impermanence clearly, you see everything clearly. When you observe the breath, sensations, and thoughts, you see this truth unfold in real time. Nothing stays, nothing is stable, nothing is permanent. And from this seeing, the understanding of non-self naturally arises. If everything changes, if every sensation changes, if every thought changes, if every emotion changes, then what is the I that you're trying so hard to protect? The self you believe in turns out to be a collection of moving parts, memories, reactions, habits, fears. When you stop identifying with them, a deep softness appears. You no longer take everything personally. You no longer cling tightly. You no longer feel the same weight of fear or anger. You become spacious, like the sky that holds every cloud but is not defined by any of them. This is the freedom of Vipassana. Not a philosophy, not a belief, but a lived experience. In your 60s, this understanding becomes even more accessible. Life has already shown you change, loss, growth, and the fragile beauty of existence. You no longer need to be convinced by spiritual ideas. You've lived enough to see the truth with your own eyes. Vipassana simply brings that truth into focus. And as you continue this journey, the inner transformation becomes natural, effortless, and deeply comforting. Reaching the age of 60 creates a shift that many people don't fully recognize until they experience it themselves. This stage of life carries a very different quality, calmer, slower, and more contemplative. The roles that once defined you begin to soften. The responsibilities that once consumed your days start to loosen their grip. Your children may have grown and built their own lives. Your career may no longer demand everything you have. And somewhere in that newfound space, you begin to ask deeper questions. Many of my students in their 60s come to me with the same concern. Is it too late for me to learn meditation? And I always smile gently and say, not at all. In fact, this is the perfect time. Meditation, especially Vipassana, is not about youth or mental speed. It's about depth. And depth often comes only after you've lived through enough storms to recognize what truly matters. In your 20s and 30s, the mind is too busy chasing goals. In your 40s and 50s, the mind is too occupied holding everything together. Family, career, obligations, finances, expectations. But at 60, something precious emerges, a natural maturity of awareness. You finally have the space to breathe, to feel, to observe, and to understand yourself without rushing. This is why Vipassana works beautifully at 60. You have lived enough to recognize patterns. You've seen how fears repeat themselves. You've watched old emotional wounds resurface in different forms. You've noticed how certain reactions follow you through the decades. Younger people rarely see these patterns. They're too busy being caught inside them. But at 60, you begin to see the shape of your inner world with clarity. Vipassana takes that clarity and turns it into liberation. One of my students, a woman in her early 60s, once told me she felt like a burden to her family. Every time she got sick or forgot something, she fell into guilt. She thought it was because of aging. But during a deeper Vipassana session, she realized that the guilt wasn't new. It was an old emotional imprint from decades ago, from the time she cared for her aging parents and felt she had to be stronger than she actually was. What she carried was not truth, it was memory. And when she observed that emotional pain as just another sensation rising and falling, she was finally free from a weight she had unknowingly carried for more than 20 years. This is the power of a mature mind, the ability to see your inner patterns with compassion instead of judgment. At 60, emotional intelligence blossoms naturally. You no longer react to everything with urgency. You've lived long enough to know that most things pass. You've lived long enough to understand that pain is not a punishment and change is not your enemy. And you've lived long enough to stop fighting with yourself. Vipassana becomes a kind of emotional homecoming. It teaches you not to reject your experiences, but to observe them gently. You begin to recognize that your fear is not you. It is simply a sensation. Your sadness is not you. It is a passing cloud. Your anger is not you. It is a wave that rises and falls. And when you stop identifying with these inner movements, your heart becomes spacious enough to hold them without losing your balance. Your relationships change too. You become less demanding, less reactive, less rigid. You begin to meet people as they are, instead of through the lens of who you want them to be. You listen more deeply. You speak more mindfully. You let differences exist without turning them into battles. This softness does not make you weak. It makes you wise. Your relationship with your body also transforms. Instead of seeing aging as an enemy, you begin to see the body as a flowing river of sensations that constantly shifts and evolves. You stop demanding it to be perfect. You stop being frustrated with its limitations. You treat it with kindness, patience, and gratitude. And amazingly, this acceptance brings a kind of peace that youth rarely experiences. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about practicing Vipassana at 60 is this. You finally have the chance to live the next chapter of your life with presence instead of pressure. Many people think the best years are behind them, but I often tell my students, your best years begin the moment you start living consciously. You are not running anymore. You are arriving. You are not chasing life. You are experiencing it. You are not building an identity. You are discovering your true nature. Vipassana becomes a way to live, not just to meditate. It helps you respond instead of react. It teaches you how to let go without feeling defeated. It gives you the courage to soften, the strength to accept, and the wisdom to embrace life as it unfolds. And when the mind becomes this spacious, this grounded, and this awake, the years ahead become not something to fear, but something to treasure. You begin to understand that aging is not a collapse. It is a ripening, a deepening, a profound opening. At 60, the journey inward becomes not only possible, but deeply meaningful. And as you continue to walk this inner path, you will see that the most peaceful years of your life may still be ahead of you. Once you understand what Vipassana truly is, and once your mind at 60 has the maturity to enter this inner path with depth and sincerity, the most important question becomes, how do I begin? Many people imagine Vipassana as something extremely advanced or spiritually demanding, but that's a misunderstanding. The practice of Vipassana begins with simplicity, so simple that the mind almost doubts whether it can make a difference. And yet, within that simplicity lies a doorway to profound transformation. At its core, Vipassana is the art of observation, observing the breath, the body, the thoughts, the emotions, without reacting, without clinging, and without resisting. The Buddha did not teach us to control the breath or to manipulate the body. He said, know the breath as breath, know the body as body. This is the essence. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to achieve anything. You simply observe. The first step is to sit down. Find a comfortable position. Nothing rigid or ceremonial. Just let your spine be upright and your body at ease. Once you're settled, bring your attention to your breath. Allow the breath to move as it naturally does. You are not trying to deepen it, slow it down, or make it special. Your only task is to notice. Breath coming in, know it. Breath going out, know it. And each time the mind drifts away, gently bring it back. No judgment, no frustration, just return. And as the breath becomes familiar, something subtle begins to happen inside you. You start to notice sensations in the body that you were too busy to feel before. The warmth in your chest, a slight tingling in your fingers, the heaviness of your legs, the gentle pulse in your hands. The body becomes almost like a living landscape, continuously shifting and changing. Vipassana teaches you not to label these sensations as good or bad. They are simply sensations, rising, passing, transforming. If discomfort arises, you observe it. If pleasure arises, you observe it. You begin to see that sensations have their own rhythm, independent of your wishes. They appear, linger for a moment, and fade. When you stop resisting them, you'll discover a surprising truth. The body is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It reveals the impermanent nature of all experience. Sooner or later, this same awareness extends to your emotions. Feelings that once overwhelmed you, sadness, worry, longing, irritation, now become waves you can watch without drowning. You notice that emotions, like sensations, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You feel them fully, yet you remain free. This is one of the greatest gifts of Vipassana, emotional freedom without suppression or denial. Then comes the awareness of thoughts. Thoughts appear out of nowhere, and the moment you observe them instead of chasing them, everything changes. You begin to see that your thoughts are not you, they are events, movements, ripples in the mind. And when you stop identifying with them, your inner world opens up like a clear, spacious sky. Thoughts become clouds, some heavy, some light, some passing quickly, others lingering. But none of them define the sky itself. This shift is where real peace begins. Vipassana does not offer peace by removing difficulties from your life. Instead, it teaches you to meet life with clarity and equilibrium. Challenges still come, pain still arises, but you are no longer imprisoned by your reactions. You gain the freedom to choose how you meet each moment. And for someone at 60 or beyond, this freedom is nothing short of precious. It's important to understand that you don't have to practice for hours each day. 15 or 20 minutes of sincere practice is enough to reshape your relationship with yourself. With time, you will become less reactive, less anxious, less entangled in the past, and less afraid of the future. Presence becomes your resting place. Breath becomes your anchor. Awareness becomes your home. This is the heart of why I created Breath Journey, to offer a space where anyone, especially those entering the later chapters of life, can reconnect with themselves through simple, gentle, accessible practice. A place to slow down, to soften, to remember that peace is not something you chase, it's something you return to. If the words you're hearing today touch you, if they bring you clarity, comfort, or even the smallest moment of stillness, I invite you to stay connected with this channel. If you feel called, you may subscribe to Breath Journey, not as a favor to me, but as a commitment to your own well-being. Subscribing is like gently telling yourself, yes, I want more moments of presence. Yes, I want to continue this inner journey. When you subscribe, you plant a tiny seed of intention inside your heart, a reminder that you deserve space to breathe, to reflect, to heal, and to grow. And perhaps someone you love might also benefit from this path. If so, you can share these teachings with them, offering them the same doorway you've just walked through. Here on Breath Journey, I will continue to guide you slowly, sincerely, one breath at a time. Together, we will explore what it means to live consciously, to age gracefully, and to awaken gently into who we truly are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing this moment for yourself. And I look forward to walking with you in the videos ahead.